Okay, so I like season 2 of Batman Cape Crusader, but my God, Batman was getting on my nerves during like some of the fights. Because I swear to God, this dude's favorite move was to like pop out from somewhere and then get shot at and then dive behind something. And then it was like this would happen like maybe every other episode. And I know this is supposed to be a younger Batman. I'm not expecting like the Justice League level Batman for this, where his backup plan has a backup plan. But like, goddamn, you have other tools. We do see him use smoke bombs and like all this other stuff, but like, use your atmosphere a little bit better. That being said, I still enjoy the season. The noir feels great. I love that this show actually focuses on Batman being a detective. Gotham keeps getting bigger, and final few episodes with Joker were probably the best stretch of the season for me. And some of the Riddler episodes. My biggest issue is that it didn't always feel like one smooth story. It would start building up like the Riddler, Rupert Thorne, Joker, and like everything going on in Gotham, and then suddenly we just kind of step away from all that and do like a completely different story. Now, don't get me wrong, some of those episodes were good on their own, but when you're watching the whole season, it sometimes feels like, okay, we're kind of just stopping the story and introduce like the villain of the week type of deal. And I think that's why I ended up giving season 2 a 7.5 out of 10. I think I gave season 1 like a 7.4. I do think season 2 is a little bit better. Maybe that's just me. I just enjoyed the story a little bit more, and we get to see a little bit more of the Rose Gallery. But overall, it's a good season. There's a lot of cool stuff. It's a strong ending, but there were definitely some things that, kept it from being great. And if you haven't watched it yet, like the best thing about this show, it continues to be like the detective side of Batman, right? That's the part where like this version really works for me. Watching Bruce go undercover, disguise himself, investigate, connect different clues, and actually have to figure things out is, to me, I think, way more interesting than watching him punch somebody for like 20 minutes. Because I feel like a lot of Batman adaptations call him the world's greatest detective, but then his detective work is basically Alfred looking something up on the computer. Here, Batman is actually doing the work because in the older like Gotham setting that we're getting, he doesn't have access to all that crazy technology we're used to seeing. The show still has that hard-boiled like early career Batman setup where Gotham is completely overrun with crime and corruption, and visually it still feels very DC animation, and honestly that's the best way I can explain it. I will say though, I don't think the animation looked quite as sharp as season 1. It's not bad. There were some really good looking scenes later in the season, which we'll get to once we get to spoilers. But there were definitely moments where it kind of looked a little flatter or stiffer than I remember. Nothing that ruined it, but I noticed it. But, anyways, from here on out, we're going to talk full spoilers. So if you haven't finished season 2, go watch it and come back because we're going to talk about Joker, Riddler, Carrie, Kelley, the ending, all of it. So, the main thing I kept noticing is that it feels like the seasons want to do two different things. On one side, you have the bigger story revolving around Rupert Thorne, Riddler, and Joker. Then on the other side, the show wants to build out Gotham and introduce all these different villains and corners of the DC universe. And I'm completely fine with that, don't get me wrong. I think Batman works perfectly well as like an episodic show. Like, give me different cases like every week, supernatural stuff, serial killers, weird villains, whatever. The problem is that those two sides don't always connect. Like, to me, episode 2 felt almost completely separate from what the season was building. Episode 4 felt very similar. And then you get to the episode with Jim Corrigan, which kind of builds off Barbara and the fallout from season 1, but it still feels like we paused the bigger like story or plot again, because the whole thing was really like Jim Corrigan dies, he comes back, he starts killing people, forgives Barbara, and then basically dies again. Now, comic fans obviously probably know Corrigan as he is connected to the Spectre. That's how we know him from the comics. So that could be important later on. Who knows? But, during the season, it still felt like another side story. It's not that every episode was like moving slow. It's just that the season felt like it kept stopping and then starting all over again. And you'll get a couple episodes that feel like they're really pushing things forward. And again, suddenly just like, oh, just another random day in Gotham. Cool. And I don't think those episodes were like necessarily bad. It's just, they just don't feel like they're part of the same season, if that makes sense. And another thing throughout the season is, it introduces a lot or a ridiculous amount of like Batman villains. Like we have the Riddler, Mad Hatter, we see Hugo Strange for a little bit, Firefly or Firebug. They never really fully go into that. Scarecrow, Poison Ivy, which technically is called Thorn, Ragdoll, and then again we also have Jim Corrigan potentially setting up the Spectre, and that's a lot. And I like seeing how this world changes like these characters because I don't want the exact same version of every Batman villain. We already have plenty of classic versions. Do something different. That's fine. But I feel like with Riddler, I don't know if they left enough of the Riddler in him. Maybe that's just me. I like the outlaw vibe. I liked his connection with Ivy, but outside of the green clothing and like question mark imagery, you didn't really feel that much like the Riddler, you know? It just felt like another mobster. And I was reading some reviews, and some people even said that they had the same issues, like saying that like his question mark gimmick is mostly connected to gunfire instead of like his typical being obsessed with like riddles or outsmarting Batman. And then later throughout the season, they kill him. I was like, damn, we just met him. Like we only got him for like a couple episodes. And then we also have Mad Hatter throughout the whole thing, which in this one she's like a TV host essentially. Mad Hatter is also a she. I only know Mad Hatter a little bit from the comics, but mostly from Arkham games. But yeah, Mad Hatter gets shot by Joker too, so it's like, damn, like we're burning through Batman villains. Like the show like has one more season left, because that's what it feels like, introducing all these different villains. And like I don't need every villain to survive just because they're famous. Like I actually like that characters can die and that the show isn't like afraid of consequences, but at least let me get to know them first. And I feel like if you're gonna completely reinvent Riddler, like give me enough time to understand this version before you kill him or make him somewhat less basic. Because right now it feels like some villains like are introduced more for like world building than because the show actually has something major planned for them. Now on to Batman himself. I will say I did find it really interesting, because throughout the season when he's like investigating, being a full-on detective, I'm fully in. That's like where he feels smart, he feels focused, and then the fighting starts, and then sometimes I'm just watching Batman and I'm like, dude, you're getting beat up again. And like I said, I don't mind Batman struggling. Like Batman should get hurt. He should mess up. He should still be learning. But I feel like he just didn't adjust enough like throughout the season. It just felt like the same thing. Like, if you pop out once and somebody shoots at you, all right, cool. If you pop out again and they shoot at you again, maybe we need a new plan. But by the third time, Alfred, dig away his suit. Because, like, goddamn. I will say there was one scene, though, episode 9, I believe. The lights out fight later in the season was amazing. Because I feel like that's where Batman finally felt like Batman. He used the darkness. He controlled the room. He made the people he was fighting react to him instead of constantly reacting to them. And I think that scene was exactly what I wanted. It made the earlier fights even more frustrating because clearly the show knows how to make Batman look dangerous and smart. We just didn't get enough of that. And I think that's why I like the later stretch so much. Like the episode with Kelley, whole Grey Ghost reference, Rupert Thorne being frozen after Joker essentially kidnaps him, is probably one of the best examples of what this season should have done more often. Like, you're building out Gotham, you're bringing Carrie back, you're giving us a nod to the Grey Ghost, you're continuing the whole bigger story, and you're potentially teasing Mr. Freeze, or at least something connected to him, because I don't think that was Mr. Freeze. I think that was just like a subordinate, Zero. I could be wrong, though. You let me know. And I feel like it all belongs together. Like, Carrie is not Robin yet. She's dressed up as the Gray Ghost. But come on. I feel like, they keep bringing Kelley around Batman. Like, I feel like they know exactly what people are going to think. I don't know if she'll actually become like this Batman's first Robin, but they're definitely planting something. And honestly, this Batman needs a Robin. He needs somebody standing next to him saying like, hey, maybe don't run directly into the bullets this time. And I think throughout this whole show, I think the biggest thing everybody's probably going to talk about is Joker. Because the Joker is serious as hell. Like almost the whole season. He's cold, quiet, feels very like controlled. He doesn't really act like the Joker most people know until closer to the end. And at first, I didn't know how to feel about that. Because when I think Joker, I think loud, unpredictable, laughing, doing way too much. This guy feels more like a horror villain who happens to be dressed like a clown. But apparently that's exactly what they were going for. Because from what I read from the creators, they said that this version was inspired by Conrad Veidt, if I'm saying that right, like silent films, German expressionism, which is, I guess, why he's so stoic and cold compared to like other versions. And once I, read that, it made a lot more sense. They weren't trying to make another like Mark Hamill Joker. They wanted somebody unsettling in a completely different way. Do I love him yet? I wouldn't say that. I'm not there yet. I think I need more time with him, but I was definitely interested. The fact that Joker was kind of hanging over the season before fully stepping in kind of worked for me. I was kind of disappointed we didn't get to see more of him earlier on. I think we really only got to see him like fully for like 2 episodes towards the end. And you could feel that something bigger was coming even when he wasn't like directly involved. And then the finale, I think, goes pretty crazy. Like, fucking Batman skewering Joker was wild. I also don't think Joker is dead because they never fully showed it. And you know how that works in shows and movies. But who knows? Because, they already killed Riddler and Mad Hatter, but I feel like killing him immediately would be insane. Because I feel like at that point, Gotham's going to run out of villains. And I did want to touch up on this. I feel like the toxin that we keep seeing, like, especially at the end, with like a mix of like laughing gas, and it looks like almost like venom to me. That's just my guess though, but that's the vibes I got from it. Whatever it is, it looks like they're setting Joker up to become like even more dangerous next season, if we see him next season. Who knows? Now, what I think the season did best overall, I think the detective stuff worked. I love seeing Batman investigate. The Joker buildup kind of worked for me. The last few episodes were really strong. The show keeps expanding Gotham and bringing all these characters we haven't seen much in other Batman adaptations, and I like that they're willing to take risks. Even when I don't love every change, what I feel held it back was pacing. Like, that was probably my biggest thing. It didn't always flow. Some episodes felt completely separate from the main story. The Batman forgets that, he's supposed to be pretty smart when he comes to fighting, and I feel like a lot of the fightings were just punches and stuff. We didn't really see a lot of like martial art. But overall, I like Batman Cape Crusader Season 2. I gave it a 7.5 out of 10. I feel like that feels right. It's good. It has a lot of strong stuff. I really enjoy the detective side, the noir atmosphere, and the ending, but it's uneven. The pacing gets thrown off by episodes that feel separate from everything else. Batman gets handled way too easily in some fights, and like some of these villains are getting introduced and killed so fast that I barely have time to care. And I think this show still has a lot of potential. I think when it mixes the world building, mystery, and continuing the story together, it really works. When it doesn't, it feels like we took a random like detour and then came back to the actual season afterward. So yeah, good season, strong ending. I'm excited to see where they go next, but let me know what your thoughts of season 2 are. Do you think the series Joker worked for you? What's your favorite iteration of Joker? Mine is probably the Arkham games Joker, even though I do love the Mark Hamill Joker in the animated show. Do you think Kelley is going to become the next Robin? And how do you feel about them killing Riddler and Mad Hatter so quickly? Maybe I'm right in my opinions. Maybe I'm completely wrong. Probably a little bit of both. But I'll catch you guys in the next one.